We have come to the Arctic Circle to reveal BMW's important master plan that will define the brand for years to come. This must not fail. It was kept a secret until today, and we're going to drive it.
But look at that. Can't believe that. What the hell?
To understand why this will decide the fate of the brand, we have to look back. When people think of BMW, many picture this as the ultimate car of the brand. A BMW E30, the second generation 3 Series, here as the most precious form as E30M. Ever since, a BMW 3 Series has stood for the brand itself. BMW was the 3 Series, or as we Germans say, the BMW 3er. Even the 7th generation might be the best driving car in its segment today. It is even Leah's favorite car to drive. So it is even more important that the all-new 8th generation 3 Series can keep its promise to be the BMW, the Beamer, the BMW.
This is why we have come here to find out how does the all-new BMW 3 Series drive. Do we still get the original 3 Series, the Dreier feeling, the Autogefühl for the BMW 3 Series? This one here is the prototype vehicle we can drive for the very first time today, but it will drive like the final vehicle. It just has the camouflage paint on the exterior, but we'll tell you everything we need to know so far for the exterior and interior, and about the drivetrain, and about, wait a minute, what about combustion engine 3 Series and electric 3 Series, the i3? There will be both. But what is the exact logic? I'm going to tell you with Thomas Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go here with this front, where you can see that the daytime running light is similar to the BMW iX3, the SUV brother. Now here in the BMW i3, and the logic here is as follows. So far, many manufacturers have built, for example, like BMW before with the 5 Series, one platform, and then they put different powertrains in it. Also full electric, plug-in, combustion, and so on. And now BMW and also some other manufacturers, they kind of go a little bit reverse in a different way, so to speak. Because here there will be two different platforms for more or less the same vehicle. So BMW 3 Series combustion engine and BMW i3, the full electric one, they will look the same on the exterior, they will look the same on the interior, they will have many same parts, and they will have so much in common. At the same time, they will be on different platforms. And that is something like a new approach, and we are of course going to cover all the versions for you are interested in. Then here we can see there will be somewhat this, let's say, graphic where you can see in the front where you have the BMW double kidney in this light area itself. We also saw that at the concept car we have already shown to you, and of course it will be similar once again to the iX3, to the SUV brother. Here I took my measuring stick and could measure some 4 meters 76 or 187 inches. That's 5 centimeters or 2 inches longer than the so far 7th generation 3 Series. And once again, everything we show you today will more or less count for both combustion engine and also for the i3, except for the battery specifics. Then here 19-inch wheels we have here. I would expect there will be of course different choices here. These are the 19-inch in the M styling, and these are also normal winter tires on there, and I can tell you they have a pretty good grip here on the snow, and the driving will be super interesting because I'm really looking forward to that. Then you can see we have the typical sedan shape here. Might also be a touring version later on, but here this normal sedan shape. We're also going to take a sneak peek at the trunk or the boot for you here today. And battery specifics, you can see here here the charging flap, electric, 11 or 22 kilowatt AC, and then we have the DC here with 400 kilowatt peak, 21 minutes, 10 to 80% state of charge in ideal quick charging conditions for this 108.7, so almost 109 kilowatt hour net battery. The same battery pack we also see in the BMW iX3. And this here will also be the xDrive 50, means all-wheel drive, one electric motor in the front, one in the rear, almost 470 horsepower. And acceleration figure, well, since the BMW iX3 is at 4.9 seconds, I would expect something 4.7 seconds, 0 to 1 kilometers an hour, 0 to 62 miles an hour in the acceleration figure as for this one. Suspension, by the way, we will today drive the base suspension. It already has a hydraulic cushion, same also as the iX3, and both for the sedan and for the SUV at the later stage we expect an adaptive suspension. However, we were really convinced of the base suspension of the iX3 that I expect nothing less here today from the 3 Series. And they said that no matter which drivetrain, no matter which platform, they really want to keep this promise that it feels like the 3 Series like before, that especially existing 3 Series customer also feel at home, especially also when they switch to this all-electric version. And here in the rear we can already see some glimpse here of the tail lamps. You can see that we'll have probably some like this as a shape. So I would suppose that this will be a very different look than in the rear, at least if we compare the iX3. Interesting is, by the way, that we will have different versions to come. So this here, the all-wheel drive version, but there will be an entry-level rear-wheel drive version as well, and also a smaller entry-level battery to keep the price a little bit lower. However, it will start you with all-wheel drive and the big battery, because most people will probably at first go for this version, so they start with that one. That has already worked quite well with the iX3. And of course, there will be versions on top of that, like the true BMW M model for the i3. There will be actually one electric motor per wheel. This will be spectacular, and of course we'll keep you updated with that. And by the way, here under the hood there will be a frunk. Not allowed to show that to you here today, but similar like you might expect from the iX3. Maybe not as spacious, but there will be a frunk under the hood here of the BMW i3. This is here the key fob, standard BMW key fob, and then when we open it, you can see here these flush door handles. They come towards us, and you maybe heard that on the Chinese market they will be forbidden soon like this. So they're working at the moment with the government there to see what solution they might come up with. The thing is that yes, they have like that you just can open it like this. But in case, you know, there would be something going wrong, there is still, like say for a firefighter, here a manual, you know, release at the end. However, they have to come out at some point, you know, when there is a crash. There are also like extra fail-safe mechanisms that they always come out in case of a crash. But you know, you always plan for what if. That is, you know, like, that's like always the thing, definitely. So there is still something going on, development, especially now because of these new Chinese regulations. Then door closing sound, pretty solid, like that. Maybe in the rear, but I mean, it's a prototype vehicle, so in the front it's already good. And then you see here this interior is still covered, but what we can already show you is the steering wheel. This is one of many steering wheels we know from the iX3. This is the M Sport steering wheel, which looks most normal as for the spokes. The other steering wheels will have these vertical spokes once again, but this is the one that maybe most will go for. It also has a perforation at the side and it has a great material quality. And by the way, all the steering wheels are animal free. And the material even feels better. That's an interesting thing. And at the moment you see the seats and so on, they are also still covered. That's how the manufacturer, like bit by bit, then reveal the things. But what I can tell you already so far is that, of course, the ergonomics are different than with the iX3 because this is the sedan. You can also move the seat in the lowest position for me. Let's see, this is the lowest position, and then with 1A9 602 to the fixed glass roof. I have still some headroom. To the side it's a little bit less, but it's very comfortable, you know. So the seat itself, the comfort is good. In the iX3, of course, you would sit higher, and if you are a tall person, then the SUV will be more comfortable than the sedan in comparison. However, then again, if you like sportiness, here you have the sportier, lower seating position.
I think we need both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leah says it, we need both.
One
Maybe.
for long range and one for
Maybe
sport.
one for Leah for her sporty driving and one for me for my comfort. Maybe like this, right? But definitely when you sit down here, you think like, I know, let's drive. And what else can you see? This is the BMW Panoramic Vision. It is the same like in the iX3. This is, so to speak, well, you don't need a head-up display with that, but there is still a head-up display box if you want so. So the head-up display will be an option. Panoramic Vision will be standard equipment, and then you have everything already in your line of sight. So this is then your instrument panel basically. It's not directly behind the steering wheel, it is more far away, but that's actually a good thing because this is then more in the far focus. And then here the main infotainment unit I can already show you so far, and the difference to the iX3 is that here it's lent a little bit more towards the driver, you know, like let's say the iX3 is like this, and then here the screen looks a little bit to me as a driver, so to stress this driver focus of the 3 Series then. And a short seating test here in the rear, and well, legroom wise this does fit even if I'm as a tall person in the front. Headroom wise it gets close, but also exactly fits under this fixed panoramic roof. Yeah, but there's not much space. This is a difference to the iX3. I can comfortably sit there, maybe like 5 tall adults. Here it gets a little bit closer, and also here my feet, they're just higher. You know, that's the thing, because the battery is underneath. I would expect then from the 3 Series combustion, and this is like maybe one of the big difference you see on the interior, that we will have foot garages there, as you know from combustion engine vehicles, where your feet are lower. But here in the electric version, there the electric SUVs always have the advantage that they're a little bit higher, and then you sit more like this and don't have like this, you know, inclination problem. But here, yeah, it's not the most spacious, not the most comfortable thing than here, so it's not the focus act here. So if you appreciate more rear space and comfort, then the iX3 would still be your choice, or then the 3 Series combustion engine. This is maybe the one thing where the i3 loses a little bit, but definitely has other advantages, especially in driving. And now we fought long for this, that we can already show you something of the trunk or the boot. First of all, very quickly from the outside, you maybe saw, this is a 2.5 box design. So it's, let's say, a little bit like an i4 and a little bit like a 3 Series and something in between. So you have this straight sedan trunk here, but it's not super long. You also have this stretched line right here. But the question is, how much remains then in the trunk or the boot? So today, a very first glimpse, and that you can actually see that it is a sedan with a separated trunk. Why is that? There are certain markets worldwide where the separated trunk and the classic sedan style, not the fastback opening, is very important. It depends. Some markets are, you know, more keen on these fastbacks opening, and some, like Germany, are also keen on touring, you know, on estate. And there will also be a touring. We can expect it for the i3. So the German customers will really appreciate that. You can also argue that an i4 makes sense with the fastback, but then here the decision for making a classic sedan, and you can see here the trunk or the boot here, you can also fit in a trolley in a vertical way. Fits in like this, and you still have some space up above. Yeah, classic size then here, and soon more to the measurements when we show you the very final vehicle here of the BMW i3. Then we are also allowed to take the exact measurements. That will be very interesting. Now it's time to start driving. Just like you would start up the vehicle, all systems in, ESC and so on, personal mode. Let's see how agile the car is, how it keeps us in the lane. Good acceleration here, basically acceleration like being on rails. And now I approach this chicane here with about 40 kilometers an hour, and I just steer with all systems in. And I mean, it's snowy ground, and yeah, that's like on rails, accelerating through. Now to about 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, and now I'm hard on the brake. Let's see also, yeah, let's say I'm steering a little bit and see if the car is braking out in any way. No, even if I would like force it a little bit, there we go. So that was super smooth, and I really have to say, when you have all systems in, and we don't have spike tires here, so these are normal winter tires, and I can just do what I want with the vehicle, just like go like crazy, and it just keeps straight, you know. And I can also go to the sport mode, It's not that we have then the ESC much drawn back yet. We can do that very soon, but we can use the sport mode for the slalom. Now here the bolts of the seats are a little bit tighter and I have more resistance in the steering wheel, so it feels a little bit sporty. It's also very precise. It is still light, the steering, so it's not a very hard steering, but it's very well to control. And here in the slalom, when the ESC is still in, I would actually say, you know, like, even if you're not skilled driver, you can easily master that. And that is also the, now I have to see that don't crash this photographer. Yeah, here also full throttle. There's no wheel spin at all. Car is really stable, and even at higher speeds here, if I would like do something crazy, I mean, you shouldn't do that at these speeds, at these conditions, what I'm doing right now. But you see, even if you would be stupid enough to do that, then nothing happens, you know. Still can't defy physics, of course, but you see that when the ESC systems are in, and here, full throttle, and the car keeps it in track. So if you leave everything in, this is like the focus on safety. Of course, we can try it again when we deactivate the stuff. So now we want to test the slalom here, sport mode, but now here, you can set it here from DSC on to DSC sport. DSC off comes later. This will be next step for most fun, but now ESC sport to see how much does the car allow then and how does it behave in the slalom. So then here, let's see. So I can push it with the throttle a little bit around these cones, so that's possible, but it's still being caught if it's getting too much out of hand. You see, I can be a little bit sportier, give it a little push then here around. So I wouldn't say it's faster, but it's more fun. And also here, for example, I can extend it a little bit more. I can do some drifting left and right. And that's very controllable. You can see I just let the car move itself, but if I would go over the top, the car is catching itself again. So, and I mean, it looks also more spectacular from the exterior, but it feels so smooth on the inside. So by that, it has a long wheelbase already. All these electric wheels have quite long wheelbases, but it feels like a car with short wheelbase by that. And even if I'm, you know, going here, for example, now on standstill, I can really throw it around, even already with the ESC Sport. There is still some ruling taking place. I feel that, you know, but you can just do already more. And the next step would be then taking it all off, which you would and should not probably do as a customer unless you have like an area like this. But there you can see that with ESC Sport in these conditions, maybe on your supermarket parking lot, you can already do stuff, you know, so it is fun. But still, at some point, the car, if you want, is also catching itself again. And we can also try one more time here, if the ESC would be still in sport, and I do this chicane S combination, if it's any less safe, because here I will not push it with the throttle, I will just drive it the same way I did before with ESC on. Let's see how the car reacts. This is more or less the same, you know, so that is the thing, that when you are on the ESC Sport, you can play with the car, but you don't have to, you know, so when you just normally drive it, it will still behave, you know, very, very safe, but you can play with the throttle. Now we made our way over to the test track, so this snow and ice racetrack, so to speak. And let's first again see how the car is leading us basically when all the systems are in, because this is, say, the usual customer situations that you just want to drive safe. And the big question was initially also, how does it feel in comparison to previous generation 3 Series? And also, how does it feel in comparison to the iX3? Let's begin with the easier part. In comparison to the iX3, well, here, especially the i3, the electric version, they use the same platform. This one here sits lower, has smaller wheels, also from the height, so to speak. So you just sit lower, you feel more connected to the ground. Yes, the iX3 has more seating comfort, and this is also clear, especially as a tall person. But here you feel more connected to the ground, more connected to the car, because you just have this lower position. However, you gotta say that how the car in general feels, the difference between i3 and iX3 is not as large as the 3 Series combustion engine and the X3 combustion engine, because this electric platform has this low center of gravity, batteries in the bottom middle of the vehicle, and that means that no matter what car you put on top of that, they feel more similar in comparison to the combustion engine brothers. What I feel here is, once again, that I can do everything I want to do with the car in a very precise way. And this, again, leads over to the connection of the previous generation 3 Series, where I especially criticized the steering feel. And now I have to say that the steering is more precise in a way of that the previous generation 3 Series was a little bit vague in this area, and then it was too much in this area. And here they have a more progressive setup here now. The steering is also a little bit more progressive, more direct in comparison to the iX3. It is still light because they want to still have this feeling, hey, heavy electric vehicle should feel light by light steering. You can of course adjust it once again in the sport mode or in the individual mode. Here finally now we also have the possibility not to put everything in sport, but only put the steering to sport. That is also very important. But what I can feel here now is that I have a little bit more resistance in the steering. I would probably then choose the little bit harder resistance in the steering. It's still somewhat light, but it is predictable. That's to me the most important thing, that you know actually what you're doing. On the track here, once again, what I said earlier is when you don't play too much with the throttle, which is also kind of tough than here on the racetrack, when you rather let it roll, be a little bit straight, the sport mode itself doesn't feel too different, only if I apply some throttle here. Then of course there's more throttle input, and then it can of course get sketchy. So here you can see that how Sebastian Loeb was driving, rather with less drifting. So less drifting is of course in a way more speed, because you can just better control that vehicle. And as long as you trust all these systems here, and here in this very tight track, not too much drifting is actually possible, then you can see how safe the car is steering in. No matter actually what you do, you just have to be gentle then with the throttle, especially for example if you then go to the ESC Sport mode. There we go. And when I'm still here just letting the car do its thing, it feels kind of similar. Sometimes when I'm off the throttle, then maybe you feel the difference. But the main difference again would be when you're on the throttle and hitting it. Here, for example, I'm not sure if you've seen it on camera, it lets you slide then and play a little bit. So by that, the car feels a little bit more natural. You can do more with the car like it would feel if there wouldn't be too many ruling systems. But it's still that you have the safety net. That's, I think, the important thing. In these conditions here, probably most would drive with all systems in, unless you have the possibility to drive free and safely and you're not in public traffic and so on. In this tighter right corner, let's see when I exit here, a little bit more steering in. When I'm then here on the throttle a little bit, then I can feel that the car has still somewhat a rear wheel bias. It is all-wheel drive, yes, but you will still have the effect that the rear motor will be always the more dominant one. They have, due to this electric system and this so-called heart of joy, this like the central system in the vehicle that is controlling all of the acceleration and braking and ESC. Everything comes together there in this one unit. Chip is produced by Infineon, by the way, it's also interesting. There you can just do everything faster. They say 10 times faster than before, because everything lands together in one place. And that is also why this car feels so different. So in a way, I have to say, it feels different to the previous generation 3 Series. It feels like a completely new car, but at the same time, it carries the values of you feel connected to the car feels easy to handle, you know what you're doing with the vehicle, and you have a precise input to the vehicle. So that is to me the thing I do feel here on this track. It doesn't feel like the previous generation 3 Series. It feels way different, yes, but it still feels like 3 Series values. That is what I take from this driving the track here. Now we want to have some fun, no more logic and so on, no more safety, so we go to DSC off. I'm still in the sport mode as well. And well, so far the car has kept me on track and everything. Let's see what it does right now. Let's see if Leah is also ready to record from the outside, and let's go. Yeah, see here, now we can just turn it around like we want. Yeah, there you see like this is like the massive difference. But the thing is here, I can even do that here very slowly, in a very smooth way, and without the car doing totally crazy stuff. This is really like at very low speeds, So yeah, and it always looks very cool from the outside. And there you can see this massive difference it just has, like when you have the ESC off now, in comparison to when the systems are all on. But at the same time, it's not that the car gets totally uncontrollable. This was also my first impression, that it really feels smaller than it actually is. It's not a small car, but you can still control it in a very smooth and agile way. And also when we try to hold the drift a little bit longer in a fast way here in this circle, you can really play with it all-wheel drive and let the car do its thing. So you can finely adjust with steering and braking and the throttle. That's always the good thing, of course, when you have like an all-wheel drive car, that you can really hold the drift right here. And this is just ESC off, And the cool thing is, I have never driven this car on snow and ice before. I do have some practice with some other vehicles, but you always have to find a fine line, with every car, how it behaves on snow and ice. And here you immediately get into the groove for the vehicle, and you get a feeling for what the car is doing, even if the systems are all off. And this is not an easy thing to do with all vehicles, that you can actually hold a drift in a very long way. I'm here now already quite good speed, and just holding that, And I'm astonished how easy it is. The car has a lot of power, and yeah, this is amazing. All the systems then are off, but look at that. Can't believe that. What the hell? This is, yeah. This must be looking pretty great from the outside now as well. And this is just live on camera. I've not practiced this before, like at all. And this is astonishing. I could do this with the Golf R maybe after I've driven it for a couple of hours, Wow. Yeah, I can just say this is like so great to control. And now what's even more important maybe, we have this countryside road situation where we also have some topography changes and maybe also some bumps in the road. So before we were on the ice lake, on the frozen lake. Now the surface is not ice, it's just snow, and underneath there's just earth. That's it. And this is of course a little bit different. So on the ice lake you have less grip, tendency. But here, of course, when it's snow, like, and when it's like packed, and you drive over it and over it and over it. In front of us, by the way, M3 Touring, always nice to see as well. Yeah, so it's also slippery, but we're driving also in this, let's say, normal customer mode, personal ESC on, and you also feel that it's a little bit rougher here from the surface because the ice lake is, mostly slick and even. But here, it's of course important to experience more about the suspension. And we have the 19-inch wheels here. For winter time, it's actually a good idea to get some more comfort in, and also for efficiency, it's also good to have smaller tires and so on. And remember, this is the base suspension. So we have these hydraulic cushions, but it won't change with the driving mode because this is not the adaptive suspension which we expect at the later stage. And it is definitely bumpier than on the ice track. And of course, you have to think about that, like the top layer of the snow is smooth and looks nice. But these lanes here on the road, they are actually already hard pack. And then you also feel what's going underneath. And something I do feel here is that the overall setup here of the i3 is sportier if we compare it to the iX3. So we sit lower, as I said before, but also from suspension setup, I feel that they wanted to go more in the direction of 3 Series, and that it also feels less SUV-alike, and that's actually also the case here. You have to think about that. You have different parts here on the road. We soon also have some maybe some kind of potholes and also some waves. So let's see how the car behaves there. What I find the most astonishing thing here about this new suspension in the Neue Klasse platform is that when the car gets out of balance in some way, they're always getting like pulled tight. As from the outside, someone would add some tension belts to the car, and the car is straight again. So it is, of course, then a more sporty experience than you would have maybe in an SUV. And it's not that you have like a floaty air suspension, but for the electric vehicles, that is often very important that the passengers don't get sick, so that you have less movement of the car itself without losing too much comfort. Here, for example, there was this big hole I was talking about, and the car is always being kept upright and straight without using much more sophisticated suspension technology. What do I mean by that? There are meanwhile some vehicles out there that have, let's say, one hydraulic pump per wheel. We saw that with the Neo or with the Porsche, this active ride system. And this is, of course, a very sophisticated tech, which is also high in weight and cost, again, 10K extra and stuff like that. And the most astonishing thing is that when the car is moving here, as it does here, maybe like left lane, right lane is a little bit higher, sometimes on the left, sometimes on the right, up and down, the car is not nervous at all. So it always remains in a very neutral position. And as soon as you're getting shaken up in which way, you might imagine, it's being pulled straight. And even more interesting is that before I was taking a drive in the M3 in front of us, and you really have to work the car around here, even with ESC on. And with this one here, I mean, I shouldn't do that, but I could would just drive just with two fingers, and I still feel safe, here on the snow track, and I'm not sweating, So of course you shouldn't do that. We couldn't do it because this is not like a public road here at this moment. It's a closed circuit, but it is possible because it's so easy to control and so easy to handle. And once again, this effect that you're being pulled straight from these guys with the tension belts around you, the imaginary ghosts, the car never gets out of balance, out of handling. And we felt it with the iX3, and here with the i3, it feels a little bit different because the car itself is already more planted on the ground, but you still have this same effect that even with the base suspension, you feel like you would use some 10K extra hyper suspension technology. This is what you exactly feel with these topography changes here. And what we also want to do is here, we're on this steep uphill now, snow terrain, not on the ice deck again, but here just earth beneath that, but they are packed snow basically. So I just stopped in this uphill area, and now I slowly start. Let's see what happens. Super controlled, really easy. Yeah, no problem at all with this all-wheel drive. So in full acceleration, it would be up to 2/3 in the rear, 1/3 in the front from the power of the engines, but it always, is variable where you need it. And then same thing again, but I really just throw it out. See here, struggling a little bit, and off we go. So here, the car really had to work. It's different when you hold it steady, but you see here, no matter what you do, if you, in this case, slowly starting would be actually more efficient, better. But even if you would be, just hammering it through, it would still work. And even more interesting, actually, when we go downhill now again, because you might have seen this with our iX3 coverage of the assistance systems and how smooth they rule, but also just when you start and stop, not only in the assistance systems, but also when you do it yourself, which is in most cases done by Recuperation, everything is super smooth. And the most thing you feel here when I'm letting it roll downhill, and now I'm on the brake, and I go to the standstill slowly. Let's see, this is easy. And now I'm stopping, but you hardly feel that the vehicle has stopped. That's really crazy, especially when you do it really slowly. And then you don't have this moment. This is crazy, right? Because usually you know it from any car out there, that when you stop, you even 2-3 kilometers now, and then you're on the brake, and then the last bit from really from 1 or 2 kilometers now to 0, you always make this blop, blop. That always happens with every single car out there, and this is the first car where this doesn't happen. So it's really as you would move a car with your own hand and just let it stand still. But here's it doesn't make this hop. It just stops, but you can hardly feel it when it does that. And why is it possible? It's possible because the motors, the electric motors, they can recuperate also at very, very slow speeds until 0, because I'm doing that with my brake pedal, but the car is doing that with recuperation. And here again, even if it's super slippery here, I mean, this was like maybe a little bit slip, but it's always, you know, this is like the most extreme situation. When you would have dry asphalt, there would be nothing from this, you know. But even here, when it's super slippery, it still works that you can very smoothly go again and also come to stop even when going downhill. So this is also one of the reasons we are here, because these are the most extreme situations for these systems, basically. And then they will work even better in the dry conditions, so to speak. But yeah, this smoothness of the stopping is really crazy. Wow, what a day. And now very important things to come. First of all, my estimation for efficiency, real world range for this one here, for the BMW i3, price estimation, a very realistic one. And also back to the central questions, difference to the iX3, to the SUV, and is it a true BMW 3 Series still? And what will be the difference, combustion engine to the electric one? So first of all, as for the consumption, for the efficiency, of course we couldn't do, let's say today, like a realistic road consumption. However, we know from driving the iX3 and also, you know, what we heard over different sources, what we could test already ourselves, that this platform here, including that one, CD value isn't a big difference, iX3, the i3. However, this one here has less wind resistance in the front, you know, the so-called Stirnfläche in German. So like the front, which is pushing against the wind, this is, you know, more narrow in comparison to the iX3 and also not as high. So it will be more efficient, and on paper it will deliver already significantly more range. However, then when you think about realistic consumption, you can always score some, let's say, if you drive realistic speeds on the motorway, not too fast, but also not too slow, then you can rule with some 20 something kilowatt hours in 1 kilometer, so about 3 miles per kilowatt hour, which would mean a realistic real-world range of at least 500 kilometers or 300 miles. You can score better with that if you keep it really at, let's say, non-German motorway speeds, or if you have a lot of city share in it, can easily also get you 600 kilometers or 370 miles. So this will be a vehicle also for people who are moving from combustion engine and say, like, I don't want to charge all the time, and I also want to maybe make a trip in one day going back and forth, maybe without charging at all. This will be possible with that car. And I always give let's say, more conservative range estimates, which also can say, hey, not the ideal condition, and you maybe also want to, you know, give a little bit more power on the motorway and so on. So these are, let's say, realistic low scoring figures. You can also go better with that. The official driving range figure for this one will probably be close to, or maybe about 900 kilometers or something like that. Then as for the price, we can check out what the iX3 is in the price, and then also how expensive is a plug-in hybrid version of the 3 Series and also of the X3 plug-in hybrid, and then, you know, calculate the like the approximate range. And this will be around, for the big battery, starting about 65,000 euros, and then well spec'd 75,000 euros. This is my realistic estimation. As for that, there will be an entry-level battery, which is cheaper and also rear-wheel drive at a later stage available. And yeah, as I said, not only the all-wheel drive version, but this one in here, big battery plus all-wheel drive. So it will be a little bit cheaper than the BMW iX3, as you have also the logic today between 3 Series and the X3. This will also be another incentive. Difference to the iX3 is platform the same. They drive kind of similar, but this one here, more to the ground, sportier setup. You have a sportier feeling, lower seating position, a little bit less comfort, especially for tall people, but biggest difference is in the rear seating comfort. If you need rear seating comfort, the iX3 would be the better idea. If you want more range and more sportiness and don't care so much about the rear seats, then the i3 is the better choice for you. Similar logic with the seats, by the way. The comfort seats are the best seats for long-term driving. The sport seats are more comfortable in the shoulder area, feel sportier, better support in the corners, but less seating depth. So then the M Sport seat will be the second choice if you think about what's the best comfort. overall, of course, you can applaud them again for making this car. At least you can go for one option then, for going for animal skin seats, but everything else from base, it's animal free on the interior, and the best high quality materials, once again, that also convince skeptics in this field. And then the main question is, how good is it in driving? Is it still a real 3 Series? It is very different in the driving feeling to a normal combustion engine 6th as well, 6th and 7th generation 3 Series. That's clear, yes. It feels like a completely different vehicle because it is a completely new, different platform. But it still carries these core genes of the 3 Series and what a 3 Series is supposed to do. And in many ways, it goes even beyond that. Yes, it is heavier, but due to these new systems, you don't feel so much from that. And you have a very direct input to the car. The steering feel is better than in the 7th generation 3 Series. They fixed that you have a linear feeling, that in every area the steering feels, very well to control, and it doesn't have this, hey, this is different than here. So very good steering setup, and you can also set it a little bit stiffer than with the individual mode or with the sport mode, for example. So happy with that. And the grip on the steering wheel is also very good for sporty driving. This car feels so connected, and it drives literally like no other EV. You know that also a lot of new manufacturers, they can build very good electric vehicles nowadays. They have good battery tech and they have great interiors from the quality and materials and so on. But the driving feeling you get this one, especially as a passenger, is so much smoother and more comfortable and more precise. And the car is never shaking, and the suspension here is stiffer than in the iX3, but still it always feels like so straight. And this is achieved with a base suspension. That's the most astonishing thing. And then when you think about this new central processing unit that can also rule these electric motors so smooth and in such a fine way that you have this smooth stop, you don't feel like the car would be stopping, and you can smoothly accelerate again. And you both profit from that, from driving yourself and also in the assistance systems area. So yes, once again, we can say that this is, at this moment, probably the most sophisticated sedan out there technology-wise, and it's still so much fun to drive. So just from driving it, it is one of the cars that you definitely want to keep once you started driving it. And that is something I rarely say, actually, yeah, that definitely gets the Thomas stamp. Let's see if it also gets the Leah stamp, but I think it already did. Yeah, she nods. And the iX3, of course, the same counts for that. So with this lineup here, iX3 in the SUV world and the i3 here in the sedan world, after letting us down in some ways here and there in the past years, what counts for a lot of German manufacturers, this is really a very strong German comeback, not only in the SUV, but now also in the sedan segment. So tell me if you enjoyed today's episode, and soon the full reveal of the BMW i3 and also the all-new 3 Series generation. As I said, it will look almost the same exterior and interior. So everything we experience today, most of that also counts for the combustion part. But we will also, at a later stage, have a very separate piece again, only on the combustion engine model, and then can show you the fine differences between it. This is also our task, that we try to serve as many viewers as possible with different, wishes and different lifestyles. So yeah, that's what we do here. And I can also tell you about this icy episode here. We enjoy the landscape. It's a beautiful landscape. I love it here up north in Sweden. I also have a lot of Swedish friends, so also Vänliheden to the north, to all our Scandinavian countries. But for us, it's really tough to produce. It's really tough. It's extremely cold. It's very stressful, and we needed 3 full days to make this episode here for you. There's so much more involved, which you can't see on camera, because for us, it always counts that you get the best product, even if that means a lot of suffering at some point for us. But of course, we still enjoy what we do, and I hope you could also, sense that a little bit, especially during the drifting driving parts. So thank you so much for tuning in, and now check out the iX3 episode, and soon there will also be the final reveal, but there are so much more videos to watch right now.